The second version of the framework is still a work in progress. There's still stuff for me to do. There's been quite a lot going on, but just some of the stuff I have been working on, I thought I would share today. So firstly, within the guideline of the framework, there is an appendices which has some information text that councils can use to put into some fact sheets. So that was more the text-based appendices where councils could grab that text and put it into their own fact sheet templates or use it in a way that works for them. However, what I have done recently, and it's still a work in progress, so these aren't finalised, but grab that content, modify it slightly to make it suitable for any sort of organisation, and that will be available once it's ready on the website. And I'll highlight that at the next network meeting, hopefully. But what I've done is there were 3 fact sheets within guideline. So there was content for WSUD systems and private properties. So that's looking at just anyone really interested in implementing or managing WSUD assets on private properties. While then there's the fact sheet for implementing WSUD systems and private properties, and so that's targeted at kind of developers and people looking at implementing those assets. And then there is managing WSUD systems and private properties, which is looking at property owners and maintenance providers. And so these are still a work in progress, and I will look to get these up on the website hopefully in the coming months once they're finished. I have also started working on another fact sheet called Doing More with Less, Improving WSUD Maintenance on a Budget. A lot of councils have said that they're struggling with resourcing or have concerns around having that money and resources to implement and improve WSUD maintenance. So looking to kind of come up with a fact sheet to provide some quick and easy wins that councils can do right now to improve WSUD maintenance. Again, that's probably the first one being completed, but hopefully these will be ready soon for distribution and access. But basically, a 2-page fact sheet just providing simple information to answer some commonly asked questions. The next thing is the website changes. So the framework website was released in August 2023, so there's been a bit of time and there has been some changes to the framework since then. So I want to be looking at providing some updates to the framework, hopefully in this kind of calendar year, looking to add the acknowledgements, which is currently in the guidelines, looking to shift that over to the website so that's easier to access and easier for me to update as more people contribute, as this is a collaborative project. Then looking to create an extra resources page where I can put those letters, I can put webinars, I can put anything that's relevant that I think is an extra resource that councils could use to improve WSUD maintenance. Then looking to have a page dedicated to a roadmap for the project. I think it's clear, I think it's important to be clear and transparent about what I'm trying to work towards and what we should be working towards as a group. So looking to develop a roadmap and outline that so people can see what the plan is moving forward. I would also be keen to have a page that outlines the values of the project to make it clear exactly what are those values behind this project, why I doing this, why is Social Protect doing this, and why is everyone getting involved in this. Also, there are some frequently asked questions getting asked to me, so I thought having an FAQ page would make sense. Also looking to develop a conflict of interest policy, as I think there are conflicts of interest that I have, the company I work for has, and also a lot of people at these network meetings and contributing to the development also have their own conflicts of interest. So I think that's important, and so that would swap the current considerations page on the website. Also be looking to make an update to the privacy policy, which I'll talk about soon, and then reducing the range of forms. So at the moment there's several forms on there, so trying to just reduce the amount to make it a bit easier to use and for me to manage, but also just looking to improve the appearance and usability of the website. At the moment, this is kind of current layout of the website. You haven't really looked at it. There's kind of 6 pages, a home page, an about page, just about the project, providing those history and updates of the framework, but also those considerations page, just for things for people to consider when using this project. Then there's a resource page, which is where you can access the framework. There's a network page, which is where you can find a bit more about the network. You can register for upcoming meetings or access previous meetings. So there's a support page to help people understand who's supporting this project and how you can support it. Even a contact page, and then in the footer of the website, there's a user license agreement about using the framework, and then there's also a privacy policy, what I'm looking to do, and would be keen to get some feedback from this people here today. or after this meeting, people prefer to kind of simplify it a bit by having 5 main pages. So there's the home page, which will be slightly updated, but basically the same concept as now. The framework will be kind of the about and resources page merged together, having about the framework, having that acknowledgements page, having the actual resources, the roadmap, and the values. The network page would be similar to what it is now, but with an about page and a way to access previous and upcoming meetings. There'll be the support page, which would be the same, and then the contact wouldn't change. However, in the footer, there would now still be a user license agreement. There would be a privacy policy, which I'll talk about soon. There would be the conflict of interest policy that I've been talking about. There will be acknowledgements also there, and that histories and updates page has been moved to the footer. Before I get into asking people kind of for some feedback on the website changes and stuff, I just wanted to talk quickly about 2 other things. So privacy policy, when the website was set up in 2023, I had currently put up the Ocean Protect privacy policy, as Ocean Protect is the organisation leading this project. However, since then, since August 2023, I've realised that this project does need a more project-specific privacy policy to really help make clear that separation from Ocean Protect. And so, once I have kind of a copy of that up, I'll be keen to get some feedback on that. The other thing I would be keen to hear some feedback on is the conflict of interest policy. So again, the idea is to really help make it clear how conflicts of interest are being managed in this project. Mine, the company I work for, but also everyone else in this network and everyone else involved in contributing to the framework. So at the moment, the current structure I'm looking to play around with would be kind of a purpose and scope to help people understand what this policy is all about, general principles for the policy, looking at acknowledging the conflict that Ocean Protect has, outlining kind of my role as project lead and what that means, having kind of broader conflict management section, which is about managing contributors and network members, having additional conflict management controls, how people can report concerns, whether that's to me or to an external body if people have concerns around my conflicts of interest, alternative, and then finally just a review section to outline how this will be reviewed going forward. And so what I'm going to pull up now is a poll which I'd be keen to get some feedback on. So which I've pulled up and would be keen to see if anyone has any thoughts on this, but basically just a few questions, some choice questions, like single choice questions, and then some text-based questions as well. But firstly, the first question is looking at how do you feel about the proposed changes to the website. So these are the changes on the slide right now. Do you strongly support those changes? Hopefully people have seen a popped up window for a poll and quiz, and you can respond to there, but basically strongly support the changes. You support the changes, you're neutral, you don't really have a strong opinion. You have some concerns, but you do not support the changes. The next question would provide you a space where you can provide any specific feedback, concerns, or suggestions about the proposed changes. So if there's anything you want to share, something you think I should add, something I should remove, or anything else, feel free to add it there. The next one is what do you think the value should be for the WSUD Maintenance Compliance Framework. So I would be interested in understanding for that values page, what do people think the values around this project should be. So feel free to kind of add text around that. The next one is how do you feel about the proposed structure for the conflict of interest policy. So again, I'll just go back to that so people can see it. But basically, do you think that structure is clear and appropriate? If you think it's mostly clear, there could be a few areas that could be improved. If you think it's unclear, needs further clarification, or you don't think it's suitable and I should be doing something else. And then there are 2 text-based questions after that where you can say, what you think those general principles for this policy should be. I'd be kind of keen to hear what people think about managing conflicts of interest with such a collaborative and industry-wide project. But then also, if you have any suggestions for improving the structure or anything you feel is missing, happy to kind of take that on board and listen to what people have to say. So I'll just kind of keep that open while I keep moving on, and thanks to the people that are responding to that at the moment. The next thing that I have done a little bit of work on is looking at understanding the costs. one of the major concerns for councils is looking at there isn't enough funding, enough resourcing to do a WSUD maintenance compliance program. So what I'm looking to do is to help figure out what those costs would be, figure out what are the costs of councils that occur due to inadequately maintaining private assets. So more pollution going off private properties into public assets that need to be removed, or water that needs to be managed, so potentially more damaged infrastructure, safety concerns, flooding, complaints, and all those sorts of things. But then also looking at the cost to implement this program and looking at how to operate a program, so understanding those costs and basically looking at those costs for 4 different scenarios. First one being if there was no program in place, what does that cost council? So having a very like a basis for costs, then looking at a basic program, which would be a very kind of reactive program that looks at enforcing compliance when an issue is raised or they identify one. There would be no kind of dedicated staff, I think, for that program, while the intermediate program would see at least one dedicated officer, would be more proactive about it, making sure that conditions are getting applied properly, covenants and agreements are put in place, and that properties are actually maintaining it, while advanced would have more staff, still being very proactive and looking at probably a higher rate of compliance with such a program, but again, there would be slightly more higher cost of operating such a program, but maybe decreased costs in consequences for councils. And so hopefully at a future meeting I can talk more about that. Another thing I just wanted to talk about, and just a few more slides and then we'll get into Q&A. So I'll come back to your question, Gregory, once we get to Q&A. But so what is in principle support? So I think just to make it clear, and I guess this actually goes to your question, Gregory, in the chat you just asked, would you be able to share details? It would be good to chat to them and see what aspects of the maintenance framework they support, and we can build on those aspects. Yep, so great question, Gregory, and I can kind of talk about that on this slide because this is about in principle support. So basically, there are 7 organisations that have provided in-principle support, with them being these organisations. There's the manufacturer, Outland Stormwater, there's the Cabinet Agricultural Alliance, Frank Sydney, which is part of Stormwater New South Wales, there's the company Optimal Stormwater, the Association Stormwater New South Wales, Stormwater Queensland, and Stormwater 2030. And if you're wanting to talk to any of them, I would encourage you to contact them via their contact page on their website. They should have phone numbers, emails, or a contact form that you can fill in there if you want to talk to someone directly. I don't have direct people for you, but all of these organisations have provided in-principle support, and you can reach out to them if you want to learn more from them and why they provided that support. So just another thing I wanted to kind of highlight here, and it goes to your question, Gregory, is kind of in-principle support versus endorsement. And I think that maybe people kind of have a different opinion on this compared to me, but in-principle support for me is really just an organisation agreeing with the idea or intent behind the initiative. And so it's not necessarily saying they fully agree with every single tiny little detail of it, but it's more that they believe it's a good idea, they think the intent of this is good, and they want to kind of have their name associated with it and provide that support. While we're looking at endorsement, which is what some organisations have seen this as, is an organisation fully supporting that initiative, including its objectives, its approach, components, and implementation. So for me, in-principle support is not necessarily an 100% endorsement, it's agreement with the idea, while endorsement is that more full commitment. And if there's an organisation wanting to endorse it, happy to do that. But for me, that is kind of the difference between those two. In terms of the next thing, piloting the framework. So at the moment, I'm getting close with one council in New South Wales to pilot the framework. Hopefully I can share more details about that at a future network meeting, but just wanted to talk a little bit about what I mean by piloting the framework, so that if there's a council here or someone you know that works in government that would be interested, feel free to share this with them. But basically, what is it? It's piloting the framework is basically testing the framework partially or fully, whether that's testing all of it to implement a WSUD maintenance compliance program, or whether it's just working on maybe the educational materials, the legal foundation, such as development conditions or covenants, agreements put in place at a council. And so it's just, for me, it's about testing it to see that it works, because in theory, this sounds good. However, it needs to really be tested and piloted by councils to make sure that it can be improved and is actually correct. So what you need to know, so if you're a council, this pilot can be as simple or complex as you want and tailored to your needs and resourcing. So I'm happy to sit down with a council and figure out a way to pilot it that works for them. No matter how much time, money, resourcing support they have, I'm sure I can find some sort of way to get them on board with just testing that framework a little bit, even if it is just creating some educational materials. I'm happy to sit down and do that. Finally, what would be the outcome of piloting the framework? It would lead to an improvement in maintenance. It would save you resources, as a lot of resources have been developed in information. You would also have access to me, and I'd be happy to help you do this. It would lead to an improved framework, because I can figure out what worked and what didn't work. Looking at developing a case study on that pilot, as councils want to see what other councils have done in this space, and also that opportunity to become partners in this if that opportunity arises, depending on context for that pilot. And so again, another thing I'm proposing to do is writing up a pilot project proposal, with the idea of this to really make it extra clear what piloting really means, so that a council can grab this document and understand on a higher kind of level basis of what this is all about. So this is the current structure I'm looking to work with. Again, there'll be a little poll to see if people agree with this or have any questions about it. But basically, an executive summary, high-level summary, so you can take that to your managers or senior management. Then having a project purpose and context to help people understand a bit about the framework, the pilot, and what it really means. Looking at pilot options and flexibility, so helping you understand what those options are and how flexible it is. Looking at roles, contributions, and expectations, so that councils understand what my role would be, what their role would be, what's kind of expected of both of us. Proposed timeline, so I'm going to develop a timeline of how this could be implemented, proposed methodology of how it can be implemented, piloted, some risks and considerations to consider, the next steps, and some appendices. So I'm going to close the previous poll and just kind of pull up this one. So going to frame pilot, launching another question, and really just curious to hear if anyone has any feedback on this structure, if they think there should be more added to this or any sort of changes. But basically, how do you feel about the proposed structure for the pilot project proposal? Do you think these 9 sections make sense? So is the structure clear and appropriate? Do you think it's mostly clear? Do you think a few areas could be improved? Do you think it's unclear in places, needs further clarification, you don't think it's suitable? Then there's the opportunity to provide a bit of a longer response to text. If you have anything to say to that, of whether you think you have any suggestions for improving the structure or anything you feel this proposal is missing. And if you're a council on here, you can respond and just say whether you're interested in having a chat about piloting the framework, as I'd love to kind of sit down with you and have a chat about what that could look like. So while I continue, I'm just going to have that meeting, so just have that on the background and not close it yet. In terms of, really up to Q&A right now, I'd be curious to hear if anyone has any questions, feedback, or concerns. Thanks, Gregory, for the question earlier, but just wanted to see if anyone else had anything they wanted to say before I move on to the next section of this meeting. Feel free to raise your hand virtually, or you can just put yourself off mute if you wanted to say something. Cool. Again, happy to stick around at the end if no one really, if people want to chat at the end, where some people might leave. But yeah, happy to stick around and talk for a bit if people need. In terms of some industry updates, some things I thought are important to raise and flag that's happening in the industry that's kind of relevant towards compliance. Is firstly, there are association awards at the moment. There is Stormwater South Australia, Stormwater Queensland, and Stormwater New South Wales. And so Stormwater South Australia is closing this Friday, while Stormwater Queensland is next month, and then Stormwater New South Wales is the start of August, and those applications are open this week, so they're quite new. However, if you have a project, whether it's compliance related or whether it's just WSUD or stormwater or anything like that, feel free to check out their website and LinkedIn for more information. Another thing I'd like to highlight is Frank Sydney is happening this year in October, mid-October, up in Hunter Valley, New South Wales. The program is out now. Registration is open at the moment with early bird, I believe, until July 31st. I will also be co-hosting a pre-conference workshop with Dr. Andrew Thomas from Stormwater New South Wales and Cultural Alliance, titled Navigating the WSUD Maintenance Compliance Framework, Step-by-Step Guidance for Councils. And so the idea of that workshop is really to help people have a bit more of a hands-on practical experience of utilising the framework. The workshop that I held last year were more focused on getting feedback on the framework, but this will provide that opportunity to sit down with councils and other interested stakeholders and play around with some scenarios and actually see how you can modify and use that framework for your needs. And so if you want more information about the conference, you can head to the website with the URL on the slide right now, or you can just type in Frank Sydney 2025, and I'm sure you'll find more information there. Another thing that I thought was interesting was a paper released in April, which was titled Identifying and Addressing Challenges in Gross Pollutant Trap Maintenance Perspective from the Australian Stormwater Industry. So this paper was led by Justin Barrett, who's at CSIRO and completing a PhD at University of Tasmania. A colleague of mine was on this paper, and some others from University of Tasmania and CSIRO as well. But basically, there was a survey that Justine led a few years ago, and this has led to a paper around kind of the maintenance of public GPTs. And so if you're a council or interested party, I would encourage you to have a look at this paper. Also, if there are other updates, if you think there is something important to be shared at these network meetings, I am very happy to include that into this presentation and give you that opportunity and platform to share with the industry. Just email me or call me before the meeting happens in the lead up to the meeting, and I can get that arranged if it's appropriate for this meeting. But that is kind of the end of what I have to say for now. So just looking to wrap up again, happy to stick around if people want to chat. But basically, you're all part of the network now coming on to these meetings, but the next network meeting will be October 29th. I'll be taking some time off in August, so I thought that wasn't really appropriate to be taking to have a meeting in August, as there probably would be too much to share or didn't want to waste your time. So 4 months from now will be the next network meeting. You can register with your QR code. You'll have the links and stuff in future emails. And then just a final slide. Again, well, thank you all for coming on today. If you want to talk to me after today, you can email me, call me, you can connect via LinkedIn. I'd encourage you to join the 74 councils, I believe, that have access to the framework already. Or if you want to learn more or access the recording slides from today, you can go to compliance.com.au. If anyone wants to have a chat, I'm happy to stick around. Otherwise, happy to kind of call it here. But yeah, thank you all for coming along, and looking forward to the next meeting.